I'm Christy Cashman, and this is Backstory. Tom Perrotta is the author of 7 novels. 2 so far have been adapted to film and turned into major motion pictures with Academy Award nominations. You wrote Election during the Clinton sex scandal, didn't you?
You know, I wrote it before. I actually wrote it right after Clinton was elected in 1992. I was obsessed with that election, and when it was done, I felt almost a sense of grief and loss. Like, what am I going to do now? As a writer, I thought, you know, I want to write a political novel. I want to take that energy that I gave to following this election and put it into my work. You know, I actually don't know that much about politics. I was class representative sophomore and junior year of high school. And that's when the little light bulb went off, which was, oh, you know, if I could put everything that I know or think I know about politics into a story that takes place in an election for a high school president, that would be pretty funny. So what I did was I actually modeled my election on that '92 election. You'll notice that I have 3 candidates for president in the election. Mm-hmm. Tracy is the one everybody thinks will be president, but Paul's like a football hero. Mm-hmm. So they're high school royalty, and then Tammy is the wild card. She's the Ross Perot. Was it a film before it was published, or did it happen the same time? It was a film project before it was published. So what happened was my then agent didn't think it was going to be published. It was too, she thought it fell between genres. And so I gave a reading of it at a writer's conference, and a screenwriter was in the audience, and she thought, oh, that sounds like a really good movie. You should get in touch with these producer friends of mine. And Albert and Ron called, and we talked about the Wishbones, which was in process at the time. I said, you know, I've got this other book that is just sitting around. It's unpublished. And for me, that was a source of shame. It was like I had failed to get the book published. But for them, as Hollywood producers, I think it was an actual bonus, right? Because nobody else had seen it. And it all happened so quickly. The first director they showed it to was Alexander Payne. He said, I want this to be my next project. And MTV Films got involved. And once it was sort of announced as a going film, my publisher who had no interest before suddenly said, oh, let's take a look at that. And so the book barely beat the movie into the world. Why do you think that your work is so adaptable? I don't know if it is actually so adaptable as it is that the first movie that was made of a book of mine happened to be made by a great filmmaker. If somebody makes a great film from your work, then other people say, oh, maybe that's the secret, you know? I loved in Election how you sort of posed the pertinent question of the time. Can a person be a pervert and still hold an effective position with judiciary powers? I know, it's really funny, right? So it's a kind of perennial debate in American politics. Yeah. Should our leaders be better than we are, or at least as good as we are, you know? In Little Children, you did what you do so well. You took quiet suburbia, you threw in some messed up characters with some real issues, and you created a mess, which is a masterpiece. What is it about suburbia that's so interesting to you? I thought that I was writing about a time in my characters' lives, that moment of having young kids, of understanding that, you know, your life is kind of set in its path. That the sort of fun, sexy part of it is at least on hold. You know, it just naturally got set in suburbia, because that was where the world that I know best. Dreams didn't happen. That's where dreams go to die, right? No, it's just the world that I knew best. But it was never a matter of, I'm going to write about suburbia, what story can I set there? It was much more, I want to tell this story, and where does it occur? When I start to visualize it, it's in a suburban playground. So I imagine there's a lot of trust that goes into turning over your creative material, letting someone else helm the project. Is that the hardest part of it, or is the hard part of it translating what you feel your vision is? You know, because I'm not a director and don't think I could be one, I start with, I'm going to need your help. And then there's this period of, I think it's making that mental surrender. At a certain point, it's the director's film. Sure, yeah. But when we're sitting down to write, it's my book, you know. By the time the movie's out, I'll have to stop and think, was that in the book or was that in the movie? And so just for instance, my main character's name is Todd in the book. And Todd Field said, look, it's going to be very awkward for me. People are always shouting my name on set. You know, Todd this, Todd that. And they also call the characters by their character names, you know. You don't say, hey, Kate. You say, well, we need Sarah, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And she said, I just don't think it's going to be good to have a main character named Todd. And so we found an equivalent name, which was Brad. In election, when Tracy votes, she goes up to the desk and she says, Tracy Enid Flick. And I was so proud of myself. Enid's such a perfect middle name. And I went back to the book. I didn't give it to her. Alexander gave her the middle name. They just thought it'd be funny if she had a middle name. It never even occurred to me. But I took credit for it for a long time.
You might ask if I ever saw Tracy Flick again. Well, I did. Just once.